Welcome to episode 24 of AuthentiCity FM. Along with my co-hosts Mike Sable and Corey Spiegel, I'm Phil Corrali. Together, throughout this first month of 2026, we've discussed disruption. We've talked about how to frame it, how it reshapes systems, what signals tell us change is coming. In our final episode in this series, we're talking stewardship. Curious, grounded, service-driven, reflective, forward-looking, determined, colorful, vocal, Gen Z. These words describe our two guests. As ICMA Local Government Management Fellows, they're just kicking off their local gov careers. Soon, they'll inherit what we're building right now, our messes and our masterpieces, our innovation or our inertia, our courage or our comfort. They're watching, they're learning, and they're already leading. The future of local government doesn't start tomorrow, it's here. Let's all get started. Okay, so with that, I am thrilled to introduce our two guests this evening. Melissa Ochoa, who is a local government management fellow with Doña Ana County, New Mexico, and Micah Eradiri, who is with the Borough of State College, Pennsylvania. You guys, thank you for spending some time with us. We can't wait to get to know you a little bit better. We can't wait to dive into this conversation. Before we do that, in true Mike Sable fashion, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves in 30 seconds or less by telling us what your local government origin story is. Why is local government what you're doing right now?
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. It's been an amazing story. Getting into local government, I would honestly say it wasn't planned because coming into the United States from Nigeria, I actually had nonprofit management as a career path I wanted to follow. But as fate will have it, I kind of fell in love with local government. And I was just drawn to local government because I want to be able to serve. I want to be able to make impact. I just want to make a change where things are. But definitely I was drawn to local government because I feel like it's the government closest to the people. And decision making is very, very paramount from the local level. And but there are lots of surprises that has springed up around the way. But my first taste of local government was in Illinois, village of Roselle, where I was an intern for 2 years. And it was a beautiful experience, and I'm continuing that experience currently now at State College Borough, which has been amazing. So give or take, I've had 2+ years in local government already, and many more years will come.
All right, Melissa.
That's amazing. So I've I've had a different experience. So I did college straight through, was born and raised here in the US. And one of the things was that growing up, my community didn't have a lot of the resources. So I started getting involved in local politics. I actually was part of my local party and everything, and I was volunteering, and then I actually started working with them. And then when I went to college, all I knew was that I wanted to do government. Originally, my pathway was going to be federal government. And in one of my classes, I remember it was the GAOA. They came in and they were showing us how cool they are and how they analyze government and everything. And they have helicopters and this and that. And I remember being like, wow, this is going to be my pathway. Well, I applied and did not make it. And I reached out to them and was like, how come? And they were like, oh, for federal government, you have to apply 3, 4 times. And I was like, that's lengthy. So I ended up taking a local government class and I fell in love. It was so direct, it's hands-on, it's impactful, it's instantaneous, not the process, the actual career, to be clear. And so I knew that this was going to be the pathway I took. I wanted to interact with people and I wanted to be hands-on doing things. And I ended up applying for the fellowship after I graduated from college. And I barely started. So this is my first year in local government.
So, since you both talked about being part of the fellowship through ICMA, and I think we in our careers have all had experience bringing fellows in, how did you get exposed to that process? And you're together as a cohort with a lot of other people in similar positions, maybe not in the same career stage, though. And so I think the cohort process is really interesting. Talk to us about that.
So I'm trying to remember how I came across the fellowship. Oh, you know what? I remember I was working for the state government for the state of Arizona where I'm from, and my boss he was, I think he was like the director. He he had a meeting with me to get to know me at the time. I was just an intern, and I explained to him, I was like, yeah, like I actually really love local government. Like I don't think I'm going to pursue a state career. And he was like, "That was my dream once." And so he goes on this whole tangent about how he really wanted to do it, but now he's so sucked into the state side of things that he never got the chance. And he's like, "If I could give you one piece of advice, I'd recommend this ICMA fellowship to you." And so this conversation happened at the end of December, and the application was due 2 days later. So I had 2 days to apply. And so after the meeting ended, right away, I go and I email my favorite professor, and I am like, "I am so sorry to be asking of this, but I need a letter of recommendation in 2 days." And so I started working on the application, and that was how I got exposed to it, but I have, in my county, we have 2 fellows, and it's so interesting because her background is completely different. Like, she has years, I'm talking like 20 years of experience versus me who has 0 years of experience, and yeah, this is all brand new, and it's interesting to see the variety in fellows and how some of us have prior experience and others don't, but, at the same time, we're all coming together, entering local government at the same time, relatively.
That's awesome, Melissa. I think mine is a bit so I think I've since 2023, I've always like tried to attend all the conferences. Thanks to NIU for making that happen. So I've been to Austin, Texas, Pittsburgh, and where were we last year again? Can't
Sunny
remember.
Tampa, Florida.
Oh, how can I forget Florida?
Because it's so cold. It's so hard to remember.
Yeah. So it's so I kept seeing adverts about the fellowship, but there's a catch. So international students haven't really been lucky to get the fellowship. So I just took a leap of faith because immigration is what I feel many people are worried about. So I kind of like knew that this was something I was going to apply for, but I didn't really know if I was going to get it. So I applied, thankful for the recommendations I got. And when it came, the funny thing is the only interview I had at the time was the place I got the offer that I got. And it was just a game changer. And one of the questions I asked them, I told them, "Do you remember that I'm from Nigeria?" And they're like, "Yes, we know." And I'm like, "If you need me for more than 1 year, you're going to have to help me with immigration and stuff." And they were willing to like say, "Yes, we'll be able to look at it. And it's not a deal breaker. We want you skills." And that is how I got it. I'm still pinching myself, and I can't believe it's like 7 months already. But that was how I got into this amazing fellowship that ICMA has made possible.
All right. So I am surrounded by people with Illinois backgrounds and people with Arizona backgrounds. So I'm going to tread lightly into this question. But my question is this. So you've been at this for a little bit. You've seen probably some of the best parts of local government. You've seen probably some of the things that are maybe like giving you a reason for maybe like, is this really just like this all the time? And so my question for you is probably a two-part question. It's like, what's one thing that surprised you in a good way? And what's something that surprised you in a way that you need to still think about that maybe it gives you a little bit of pause?
Well, I would honestly say that the work that is done at the back end in local government is kind of invincible, based on the fact that people on the outside don't know that so much work is going on the inside. I feel residents are like, what do these people even do? But when you work inside local government, you see so many like different pieces that need to like work together to get stuff done. And I think that's one of the surprises that got me. Like, we do so much. You guys do so much. You've been in this profession for decades, and it's not every time you get the credit that you should get, right? But every day it's like a different kind of thing going on. And I feel residents should be able to see that, but it's invisible, right? And I think that's what like surprised me the most. From the outside, it looks slow. What are these people even getting done? But it's constant motion. Things are always moving. But I think we're constrained by the process, bureaucracy, law, and accountability. I feel if I want to merge what you asked into a one-piece answer, that is what like surprised me the most. We do so much, but people on the outside don't see what we do most of the time.
He's very spot on coming into local government. There is so much background work that is happening, and I think what I love about it is the fact that now I'm involved and I have a say in everything, and, like, I actually get to guide that decision that gets made. And so that was just really surprising to learn. I think it kinda ties in with transparency, and I feel like right now a lot of us are facing a lot of trust with communities. At least I know for sure my community, we have that barrier up where the public doesn't trust us, and oftentimes they show up to our meetings and they're upset and they're talking about this subject, and here I am in the background and I'm aware of this, but sometimes it's like I can't let them know like why we're doing it the way we're doing it. I really do think that was tied with the whole transparency. So now being on the inside, I'm like, I wish I could tell you why it's happening and why we made the decisions. I wish we could find a way to kind of bridge that gap so that they're aware of like why we led the way we did. And I feel like, at the end of the day, you're not gonna ever be able to please everyone. So unfortunately, you just if you can please the majority, if you cannot, you're in some trouble. Maybe try to reframe that process and figure out how can we please the majority and can we get that community feedback and so that we can fix this and have these conversations. This is my first experience in local government, but it's also my first experience in an office setting. And so I didn't realize coming into working in an office in 8 to 5, there's like, and I'm just gonna make a title for it, office etiquette. There's office etiquette and there's like these unspoken rules, but everyone should know them, but if you don't know them, you're in trouble because now you're breaking them and people are noticing. And so this has been a curveball for me coming here, and I'm so grateful because I have my coworker slash roommate and the other fellow, and she helps me with this. Like I'll have conversations and I'll be like, "What did I do wrong?" And sometimes it's as simple as you responded to the email too fast. And I'm like, "That's wrong?" It's so surprising. So, no, I am not even lying. We were having this conversation last night, and I was like, "I didn't realize you're not supposed to, like, coming from, being in school for so long, your professor sends an email if they need a response, you respond right away." And this is what I thought was correct. And so this was very surprising to learn that there's this office etiquette. I think, ICMA, I've seen, like, in the emails that they send, sometimes they'll provide, like, email etiquette and everything, but they need to do more coverage on that, and they need to prepare the fellows and tell them, like, "Hey, if this is your first office job," like, and because I've talked to our mentors and everything, and they're like, "Oh, you're not the only one. This is normal." And in my head, I'm like, "Well, why is this normal? Why is this the norm? Why does everyone know this and no one does anything to change it?"
So that's a perfect segue to the question of you're both fairly fresh out of grad school. What are those gaps between how it was in theory or in the textbooks and now that you're into your first year into the field? What are those gaps that you can say right now because it's very lived and very fresh?
Well, I can go. I can say that theory is one thing, practice is another thing. And I will say what I said before. Multiple things like going on at the same time it's something that most times I struggle to wrap my head around. Policy research, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And how are you able to like figure out what should be number one, what should be number two, what should be number three? And it's just like, it's something that never ends. It's a circle that never ends. I wonder how you guys have been able to cope in the profession for decades, doing so much every single day, and the unpredictability of what could just happen. Um, I remember in Illinois, there was a day we just heard there was a plane crash. Who plans for a plane crash? Right? It's those things whereby in the moment you just have to act. And I feel having someone at the helm of affairs who's a leader, who knows what he's doing, like really helps to like set things in motion, set things in place. But it's something whereby theory doesn't really say much as practice. Practice will definitely like make you see things that you never knew existed. There are lots of things going on at the same time, and you have to put out the fires before the fire spreads most of the time. So
No, I 100% agree. I feel like there's not enough textbooks that you could have read to prepare you for all the things that we have to go through. And even if you did read all of those textbooks, you probably still don't have it right because the smallest little difference can just change the whole narrative. And so that's one of the things I've come to find is everything is a scenario to scenario basis. You can't respond to the same thing twice. Um, I don't think we were ever taught that, in the classroom setting. Typically, you read the material beforehand, you have your own thoughts, maybe write a paper, take down some notes. You go to class, you hear everyone else's thoughts, you kind of gain insight from that. The professor talks, they, guide you in the best way they know how, and then you kind of reflect on it and call it a day and maybe remember it for a test, you know? But in real life, that's not how it works. Most of the time, these conversations aren't even happening. A lot of the times, unless it's like an emergency, when they have to call like OEM and the EOC and everything, it typically there's not a lot of discussion from different people being involved. And so especially if you're in a leadership role and you have to make a decision, you have to have that like gut instinct and that trust in yourself that you're making the right decision. And then at the end of the day, you just have to follow through with it.
Okay, so I know you're gonna say you have a question, but I'm just gonna offer something. We actually don't know what we're doing. So I I appreciate that you think that. So the first time you have something that you're like, I've never experienced this in my life. The important thing is to have a network of people that you can call. So we had a situation in the city I'm in right now, and I had something last week, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I called my friend Yuli, who gave me some really good advice, and I was like, okay, cool. And the other thing we did is like, when you face those situations, carve out time after you're done to, okay, what's the lesson here? What did I learn? What did I miss? Like that after action in your own head is the thing that's going to make you better. So now, right, 7 tragedies into your career, you're like, oh, well, I think I got this. Like I know a few steps to do. So, um, truth be told, no one knows what's going on. We're all making it up as we go along. But the deeper your network is, the better likelihood that you're going to have a connection. Partially why we put this little podcast together is to have conversations with people like you. Cause so it's like, hey, we are all in this together. We don't know what we're doing, but you know what? We can figure it out. So don't despair.
So Mike is 100% right. We wing it more than we don't. And that's just the nature of things, right? I think, Micah, your point was right on that you walk in the door in the morning and you don't really know what's going to happen that day. You hope that you have a pretty good idea because you've got a list and you'd like to get through that. But, fate intervenes and now you're dealing with something else. You know, I want to talk a little bit. So Corey and Mike and I all came of age in this profession during probably what was the most prosperous period in modern history. The 1990s and early 2000s, it was truly the sky was the limit. I started my internship, and I remember one of the first staff meetings I went to was a brainstorming session on new programs that we were going to try to initiate in the next year. And it was because we had excess funds coming in that year and we didn't know what to do with them. So let's come up with these new great programmatic ideas, and we're going to hire more people and we're going to bring more stuff to our residents. And oh my gosh, what an amazing time. And that happened, and then for us 2008 happened and the Great Recession took place, and we never really bounced back, and we've had a whole series of things that have happened since that time. And I think sometimes about when I was a young intern, just kind of working my way through grad school and learning about that stuff, like it was very optimistic. Government could solve all problems, and people believed that. And residents came to meetings and said, we know if we bring this problem to you, you will come up with a solution. And that's why we're here. We're here just to send this to you, place it in your lap. And we know that in 6 months or a year, you're going to come back to us and you're going to say, we have solved this issue. Now, you juxtapose that against what we're working through these days, right? Where there are no longer kind of that pat you on the back perspective from your communities. They are as Melissa, as you were saying, they're kind of coming at you and saying, why haven't you solved this problem before I figured it out? Because clearly you don't care. So you guys are coming of age in a completely different environment. And I think what we have tried to figure out is like, how do we have this cognitive dissonance of government is great and government is terrible? And here you are walking in this era of government not really being anything but a 4-letter word and still wanting to do it. Like, what is that pull for you to say, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to put myself into a situation that's tough and I'm going to solve problems?
That is a loaded question for starters. So, um, I think it just kind of goes back to what really drives you as a person. I know oftentimes we speak about like the different generations and everything, and at least while I was in college, I felt like a lot of my peers in my generation, we were all very motivated to make a change. Now, to kind of further touch on this, one of the things I want to know about my generation is I remember in one of my classes, the professor asked, how do people typically vote? Like, what drives people to vote? And the common answer was how your parents vote. So, like, that's what causes people to vote. I really think we're no longer looking at voting that way. I feel like with my generation, we're actually kind of trying to carve a new pathway for voting, for local government, and for how things get done in different areas and different fields. The driving motivator is wanting to be the change, but trying to look at it differently than it's been looked at in the past. And that's why I feel like I'm in government. I think when I talk to other people in my age range, that's why they're in government. They also want to make the difference, but look at it from a different perspective.
Melissa, I don't know what you want me to say. I think you just said everything that I wanted to say somehow. But the only thing I think I can add is just to say I feel what drives our generation is change. We want to be different in a way. We want to see things differently. And we want the old guard to actually see things the way we're seeing it. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. We want to be not just like carried along, but we want to be in the rooms where decisions are made. And we want you to see things the way we see it. I feel this generation is the generation that asks the most questions, questions the whole narrative. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? People may say the old way is the way it should be, but this new gen will be like, why is that? Why should we do what we're doing, right? So we should try as much as possible to make room for those kind of narratives. And but I feel what would like drive the major Gen Z or the youth. I feel it's like service to the people. I can speak for myself that I love serving people. I love helping people. And I feel like this profession will be the profession that helps me do that.
So one of the most endearing qualities of your generation to me is the fact that you are comfortable asking questions. And the why question is so particularly important these days. We've talked this whole month and before that about how so much of our process lacks the why proposition. Why do we do this? Why do we care? Why do we I don't know, why do we keep this data and not that data? And where I think you guys are pulling us is pulling people who are perhaps uncomfortable with the why question into a space of it's really fine to ask a question. It's really fine to explore the why proposition behind why something happens. And I think it's such a important aspect of how we carry forward from today to tomorrow. I was never encouraged to ask that question. And maybe Corey and Mike were different. But when I was in my formative years, it was never ask why, just keep doing it. Right. And here we are in this space where we're saying everything is on the table. Every process, every program, every idea should be on the table so that, like we talked about last week with Rebecca, if we've got to clean out the closet, we now know what's worth putting back into it so that it isn't just we're going to mash it in and, like the cartoon, hold the door closed, that because if you let it go, all of the toys just overwhelm you. And just, it's we have that opportunity. And I really believe that you guys are leading the way in pushing us to be even more comfortable with the why proposition. So you need to pat yourselves on the back for that because it's critically important for success in the future.
So, Micah, there was something that I wrote a note down as you were talking, and there was a very famous speech that was given in the last week. And as I watched it, something the person said was, nostalgia is not a strategy. And I think that's what the world you're coming into is. You have generations ahead of you that we remember the good years and are very fond of them. Before we started recording, we were talking about dial-up and first emails and all those things. And because that's the world we come up in, and it felt safer until 9/11 anyway. It was just fundamentally different. And so keep us on our toes. I will say my experience was different. I had amazing managers who not only let me dream big and crazy. I remember one of my first, so I came up through economic development. One of my first department strategic plannings, I'm like, I want to go attract a spring training facility. And my boss is like, yeah, we've been down that road, but knock yourself out, kid. And 4 years later, we were building a spring training facility. Like the stars align. And so there will be some strategies that you deploy in your career, which will be my next question for you, that, surround yourself by people, whether or not they're your boss, who will let you play 20 questions and be like, what was the worst thing? What can you learn? What do you wish you would have done differently? All those things. Because I can promise you our generation will be more than happy to tell you about where our scars came from. And so from that standpoint, your fellowships will end. And then you will start the next stage of your career. So one of my favorite parts of my job was professional development and building work plans and helping people get where they wanted to go. And so project forward. What is your perfect, most ideal next step professionally?
I think that depends on where you are. Not location wise. No, that doesn't necessarily matter, but professional wise. is your organization, as a fellow, is your organization investing in you? Are you learning? How fast are you growing? Are they guiding you in a way that maybe you're growing a little bit faster so you can skip a step? Or are you growing at a normal pace where it's okay to just want to take that next step? I'm very fortunate my organization is investing in me a lot, and they're letting me go to a leadership training. They're giving me projects, and this is all amazing. But I know myself. I think I'm just ready for that next step, and that's okay because that's the pace that I want to go at. I'm not in any rush to become a city manager with no experience and, you know, drag a city into doomsdale. Not ready for that. I really do want to do it. I really do want to do it the best way that I can. And so if that means taking it a little slower and going one step at a time, I'm okay with that. So personally, for me, that would be becoming an analyst of some kind, or maybe even an executive too. And from there, we'll see where that might lead. Um, 5 years from now, though, however, I have a plan for sure. 5 years from now, I do want to be a manager. At least, this 1 year should hopefully, 1 to 2 years, should hopefully give me enough insight into leadership where after I go back, take a step down, get that analyst experience, and get as much information in the department I decide to pursue, then I can become a manager because now I have the leadership background, but now I know the department well enough to become a manager and lead other people.
That's awesome. For me, my path isn't really like straightforward. As you guys know, or if you didn't know, now you know. Mike is from Nigeria, and with the old immigration stuff going on, we don't know what happens next. And I can like want to like dream big and say, oh, in 5 years this is where I'll be. But if immigration isn't sorted, there's still going to be that question mark. So the honestly, I don't know, and I'm just trying to be okay with that. I know the skills I want to build. I know the kind of leader I want to become. But where that happens or what my title will be in 5 years, I can't tell you. I don't really know, and that's the me being honest and transparent. And I've learned that the mentors I trust most are the ones who didn't necessarily have it all figured out or mapped out. They're the ones who figure it out in uncertainty, and I'm just trying as much as possible to just every day just try to get better, because that's like the most valuable skill. I want it all, but like I said, before I came to the US, I didn't even know that this was going to be possible, to be in this field. But I see myself as someone who would be a leader in this field. How it's going to happen, I don't really know with the pathway and everything, but I just want to be around the conversation and just keep growing, developing skills so that wherever I'm needed, I will be an integral tool to make anything happen.
I will tell you, so we call the title of this podcast "Authenticity FM" for a reason, right? It's supposed to be real stories. So I appreciate you that you're willing to share authentically, right? Both your right hopes and like uncertainties. Those are all real things, and so creating a platform for people to be authentic is what we're after. One of the things that we talk about. And Tony Angie was on this program. So if you haven't seen it, go back, watch it, like it, subscribe it, provide comments. And she talked about this work-life integration. And so you're new in the profession, you're wanting to absorb as much and work really hard. But we also know that you're humans outside of your work roles. What are some of the things that you do to enjoy life, to recharge and to refresh and to so give us a little insight into who you are as people. And so I will let you guys fight over who's going to go first.
I've actually been hoping to talk to Phil about running because runners, we love to talk. If you are a runner, you want to talk about running. It's a thing. Yeah, no, I fell in love with it about a year ago, and I'm not going to lie to you. I actually went down this rabbit hole. So it started off with running, and then at the time well, he's still my best friend. It's just he lives in Arizona and I'm in New Mexico. But anyway, so he was like, I used to be a swimmer. And so then I was like, I can be a swimmer. And so then I started swimming. And then he was like, "Oh, I have to bike to school every day." And I was like, "I'll get a bike and I'll bike with you." And so it kind of slowly progressed, and it just kind of led me to be like, "I'm gonna start triathlon training. Like, why am I not? If I'm doing all 3 sports, why not just." And it's honestly it's been such a physical battle, it's been a mental battle, it's been a nutrition battle, like I had to convince myself that I don't like Cane's, and I to this day, if you will be like, "Do you wanna go to Cane's?" I'll be like, "Ew, fried chicken? No, I can't put that in my body." And so it was definitely a really big shift in my life, and it absorbs a lot of my time. My weekends go towards, long runs. I wake up at 4:45 to go to the gym because you can't just run. If you are only running, you're going to injure yourself. You have to lift weights, you have to prep for the running, and you have to prep for everything you're going to put your body through. Now, swimming, I have actually found out I'm not that big of a fan of swimming. Every time I do it, I feel like I'm drowning. That is the one that's, like, the most neglected, so if you ever see me out in a pool and it looks like I'm drowning, I probably am, but please let me be. I will figure it out at some point. That's what I do. I'm also an avid reader. I hear you often talk about books, and I add them to my TBR. Um, Unfortunately, though, I do lean more towards fantasy, and so when I'm looking to pick a book, it's typically not a nonfiction one. I'm really trying to work on that.
No
We'll see how
apologies are
that goes.
necessary. You need to read what you find joy in, I would just
Yeah.
say.
I thank you. But then so I also do read, like, the ICMA articles and just about anything I can find on Google or anything. Um, and they've been talking about this hedgehog theory that comes from this one book that I'm pretty sure is local government. Oh, I see Mike nodding. He knows what I'm talking about. It's
Mhm.
been brought up. I've seen it twice now, and I'm so curious, but I'm like, to read a nonfiction book, I like listening to the podcast for a reason.
Okay. So, Micah, you answered the question. I am going to go to the Google machine and come up with a perfect explanation of the hedgehog. So, Micah, what do you do for keeping yourself sane outside of work?
Yeah. Well, I feel Melissa has a more interesting story than I will tell. I don't know how you do what you do. I was impressed when you shared a bit of what you did at the conference in Florida. That's impressive how you've been able to, like, we should call you like a strong woman now. So, but for me, basically what I just do, and I'm still trying to find that balance, but most of what I do is just bake and cook. Over the Christmas holidays, one of the things I did, and it was one of the goals of mine, was like to go to homeless shelters and give them food. It was one of those things that like gave me joy, and just knowing that what I was doing was going to make people smile was something that it just felt right. So I try as much as possible in my spare time, apart from reading or research, I try as much as possible to bake. I just bake, I cook for friends and I just surprise them. It's one of those things that just gives me joy, making other people happy. It's one of those things I found. So coming to Pennsylvania, um, I joined like a step challenge. I did about 43,000 steps in my first, I think my second week. There was like a competition. I think July 4th, the person who did the most steps, and I did 43,000 steps. So I think it is built that I'm not taking more walks. It helps that the office isn't really far away from the house. So I try as much as possible to get 10,000 steps every day, and that helps. But I think there's a way I can like add more fun stuff into my routine, but I'm just taking it one day at a time. But anything that makes me like serve other people, it's what keeps me sane. If I'm not working in the office, where I'm also still serving people, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That is so wholesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that just makes my heart like grow 3 sizes because right? I mean, like we've talked about this on the podcast. Like there is this return to simplicity, this return to things that are that you can touch. So, right, reading books, baking, moving, like, these things are real and they matter, they're really important. And I also would say like over the course of your lives, there's always more you can do, but the more that you can be grounded in the thing that you do that gives you joy, just do that thing, and that's going to be great. So I just appreciate the way you describe the things that are important to you. I did want to talk about the hedgehog concept. So there is a gentleman named Jim Collins. He is largely regarded as the greatest thinker of management of the late 20th century. Uh, and I'm so old. Like I know Peter Drucker, who was the beginning of the 20th century. Jim Collins is number 2, and he had this concept. And so he has this hedgehog concept it is about passion and focusing on this one thing that ignites and aligns with your purpose that you can be the best in the world at, and really focusing and giving this single disciplined action around this thing that you're great at is your hedgehog. And it's part of what he calls level 5 leaders. It's one of the great management books of the 20th century. You guys were all born in the 21st century, so it's probably not as relevant to you. But Jim Collins has actually presented at ICMA conferences. And that's maybe the last thing I'll say is like, we get this access to these great thinkers about the world, and not every profession gets that, and not every profession shares it openly. So if I learn something, I am going to share it with as many people as I can to accelerate learning and other things. And so, Melissa, if you ever want to talk about Jim Collins, I am more than happy to do it. I have all of his books, most of I actually have his speech from the ICMA conference, and I'm gonna try not to guess. It might have been Boston. It might have been before Boston. But Jim Collins is a staple in the ICMA community. So, and Mike Land, ICMA president, is a huge fan. He actually carries out a little hedgehog with him at all conferences. And so it's just a continuation of this idea of like single-minded focus, being the best we can, and knowing your purpose. So there you go. That's my professorial lesson of the day.
Thank
I
you,
would
thank you,
appreciate
thank
if you
you.
could send over any material. Yes, please.
So I want to perhaps change gears a little bit and talk about the future. So we joke about our age differences. We joke about how old we are and how young you are. And God, when Mike said that you were born in the 21st century, I'm like, what? Oh my God, they probably were. Um, that's I still think that 21st century, the turn of the century was about a year and a half ago, and it wasn't. But here we are. Um, I would love to hear your perspective on what you think we do today that is just the stupidest thing. And at some point in the not too distant future, we're either never going to do it again or we're going to do it so much better because we're going to come up with something. And just so that you don't feel like you're left out there, I will just mention, I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago. When I was in grad school, I did my entire master's thesis on how this newfangled contraption known as e-government was somehow going to bring us deep into the 21st century. Now, this was very close to the turn of the century. So, this whole concept of doing business with a local government online was, like, are you kidding? Like, where are the Jetsons? There's no flying cars. There's no way I could pay a bill on a village website. What and my prediction at the time was this is going to be huge. It's going to be a massive benefit to local government. It's going to change what we do. Obviously, we don't call it e-government anymore, but what do you guys think is going to be the thing that changes this for the next generation. When we flip flop, when you guys are sitting on whatever platform we do 20 or so years from now, and you're interviewing the local government management fellows at that time, what are you going to say you look back on and you're like, that was the thing that I knew we were going to change?
Well, the first thought, just you saying that, I feel it's AI. I feel it's where we are now, and it's where it's going, and it's only going to get bigger. And as much as some people may be skeptical about it, um, I feel AI, artificial intelligence, is here to stay. It's only going to get bigger in the not so distant future. Don't be surprised that an AI is going to run the city. Maybe maybe people who are crazy to like have like artificial intelligence as their city manager or something. But I feel the way things are going, things are going to be automated. Things are going to residents don't have the patience anymore. And you guys will understand what I mean. Like, you have to deal with them every day. But I feel with the advent of AI, we're going to be introduced to processes that make things better. Our response time will be better. People can just go ask questions and get answers in record time. Processes will be better. And I feel AI isn't replacing government work. It's just revealing where our processes were already fragile. And with the new gen, we're trying as much as possible to get work done faster. And the things that are going to help us are like AI tools. And how much are we going to adopt them? It's just like, I don't know if you guys still do note takings, like at meetings, right? Um, but there are now tools that do like note taking, and it saves time from someone in the meeting, like taking notes and doing other things that they should do. And I feel that's what's going to like evolve. And the thing is, the old guard may not be okay with that evolving, but I think that's where we're headed. That's where things are going to be in the next coming years. Things are going to be more automated. Residents are going to expect a quicker response time to their complaints, and I'll be it'll be interesting to see what Melissa says if she has something different. But I feel AI is going to get bigger than it is even now. So
First of all, Phil, I'm sure for that thesis, you deserve a Nobel Prize. Yeah. And then the second thing is ditto. I feel like a lot of the in previous podcasts, you guys have talked about AI and how it's affected a lot of things. But one of the things that I feel like hasn't been brought up is how it's affected communication. So how people talk and converse and everything. Micah's kind of um, gently motioned towards it that, it seems like people are becoming less patient now because they want things to be a lot faster. And, typically in government, things just don't move that quickly. Um, it's funny because I've received emails and the email will begin with, here is a smoother, better worded response. And then it's the email, and I'm like, did they forget to delete that part? And so I see that and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess," and then if you're using it as a tool, that's fine. I would just say, first things first, make sure you type your draft of, like, really what you wanna say, and then be specific with that prompt you insert, because otherwise, at that point, you're just having a computer talk to someone, and it's not going to be giving the correct message. And I have a fear that that's the direction we're heading in. People aren't really checking it or using it appropriately where it could be more of an asset. They're using it more as like a quick everyday thing, like, "Oh, write an email about this," and then they just send that email as is. Uh, the thing with computers is they're not always accurate. They're not 100%. And so the other thing is kind of like the fact that it's not really allowing for real conversations to happen. And, typically we bounce ideas off of each other, or, something lights a light bulb for one person. Um, I really hope that it doesn't take away from like our creativity and our ability to think individually.
So I think those were both very interesting responses. But I want you to like expand your scope a little bit and think about it from, Micah, we were talking before we hit record, 18 inches of snow. I don't think AI is going to shovel or plow 18 inches of snow. And I suspect there are residents who were in need of emergency services when there was 18 inches of snow. And so I think you're going to have this balance between better information faster, and I would say better decision making. I hope for your generation there's better decision making. I will speak only from my perspective. Politics played a big role in where investments went. And as I grew professionally, we started to introduce a lot more data induced decision making, where it was a lot harder to exert influence and fight the facts of why something should happen. Now, it still happens, but it got a lot harder. And so I hope kind of the informatics side of it gets much better, budgeting gets smarter, but you're still going to have that juxtaposition. And we all remember it from COVID, when you're getting into work from home, but the trash guys can't do that. The cops can't do that. The firefighters can't do that. And so you're going to have this really distinctive workforce where certain services are still done by humans just because they have to be.
I think you make a very viable point, Corey. And I think AI isn't going to replace humans. AI is still going to need humans in some capacity based on what you're saying. But just like residents are impatient or want things to be quick, I feel technology is going to evolve in the coming years, whereby there may be like a higher efficiency rate in terms of response time, or maybe we have the tools that will make work to be done in a quick manner or a quicker manner. Um, but the human factor will still be like a key component of that. We need people who are going to drive the trucks, right? Do the plowing and everything. So AI is not going to take over everything. I think the human factor will still be key in maintaining structures, or for people to see someone behind the wheels, that kind of thing. So basically, I feel we will still be useful in the workforce no matter how AI evolves.
Can I play devil's advocate? So,
Oh,
in one
the
of your
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
so you guys have mentioned it in this episode, but I know it's also been mentioned in the past, um, the Jetstones, which I'm not going to lie to you, originally, when you first said it in that very first episode, I was like, "Why are they talking about the Flintstones?" And I was, you're describing the situation, and I'm thinking, like the people in the walking cars, and I was so confused until you gave a little more description and you're like, "Flying cars," and then it hit me who they were, and I was like, "The
Mm.
Jetstones, the
Jets,
opposite of the Flintstones."
Flintstones, the
Mhm.
Jetsons.
Oh, I'm not even calling them the right thing, my bad. I'm so sorry to be so
No,
disrespectful to
you
your
can
generation.
actually you can feel my gray hair growing through the screen. It's
You
it
just
is
let me go on.
perfect. No, because this is how it works. This is the beauty of a show like this is there is like this is local government in action. We actually don't know what we're doing. We all care about it. We all care about each other, and we're just working to make it the best it can be. So this is why, like, you can call it whatever we want. We will adapt and move on. So I want to hear I want to hear your next thought, and then I'm going to jump in with a question.
Yes, of course. So you mentioned during that episode, like, the flying car, and someone's already thinking of it and they're already doing it. I feel the same way about like robotic people. Like someone has to already be trying to. And, not to name any really big companies that sell groceries and are also super centers. but they were very quick to remove all the people, and it backlashed on them. I don't know about like at all the locations, but in my location, back home in Arizona, everyone received like an email news. The news outlet was putting it out and everything that they're going back to more people. They're opening registers again, and they're actually undoing the self checkout because there was so much complaint about it from the people. So I think as long as people still continue to show up and they want that human interaction, we're not going to be able to change everything. It's not going to be able to become a robot. And so I think with older generations, and I hear it a lot, I hear it here in my county, there's this like, personally, I don't like this term, and maybe it's because I'm entering the workforce, job security. They talk a lot about job security, and it's like, if I don't tell you, I get to keep my job forever. And I really do think that's going to play a role, is that people want job security. I want job security, of course. So I'm not going to let a robot do something better than me. I'm going to try to outperform it and just show that, the robot is, yeah, they might take longer to make a defense, like a mistake or everything, but I promise you, my mistake, I can fix myself at the very least.
That is, I think, the challenge that you all are going to have to face, and maybe us to a lesser extent, is that defining what the end user really values. Do they really value the speed or the efficiency, or do they really value the high touch and the personalization? And both sides are correct. You're going to have to figure out what that perfect answer is as to meeting sort of both sides. And you had said something earlier, Melissa, that I kind of laughed at when you talked about how, you're never going to make everybody happy. One of my standards at work is if everybody's a little bit mad, we probably did the right thing. And so like, cause there is no winning. There is no perfect answer. And so I wanted to share kind of those two things. And then the last thing I want to do is one of the bits we have on this podcast is, we give you time to ask questions of us. Rebecca Ryan last week asked probably the most difficult question we've had. So she set a pretty high bar. What is a question or something that you have for the three of us that we pledge to answer, however awkwardly and poorly we do it? We are at your whim. What do you got for us?
I can go first. Uh, I think the question I will ask is, how was mentorship for you starting in the career? Like the mentors you had, what is different from what you're trying to be to us now? Like, what's the difference from how you were mentored to how you're doing it now?
So I had great managers who always gave me the next step. And I think I reflected that back as a manager. I remember when I was in Arizona in Goodyear, my economic development director, you're going to go to EDI because that's a 3-year process, and you're going to do that. And you have to do that before you can become certified. And so kind of, Melissa, to the conversation you had, it was, here are the steps. If this is what you want to do, here are the steps you have to take. And so I had very much a great path, but I would say government, again, and it was fast growth in that era. So we got to dabble. I got to color outside the lines all the time professionally, and I'm so grateful for that. And that's one thing I tried to bring as a manager, was helping other people color outside the lines. And one of my favorite infamous stories would be, I would ask an employee, oh, do you want to go for a walk? And everyone knew, or my catchphrase was, I have an idea. And it would come with that little, kind of wink and a head tilt. And they all knew whatever it was going to be. It was going to be crazy, but also amazing. And so I created job descriptions. I created jobs. I wanted to use people to their absolute best strengths because I knew the organization was going to be better. And I remember having a fairly serious debate with HR because the organization here in Iowa was heavy civil service, heavy collective bargaining, so very unionized. And it's like, no, we have to have job descriptions and everything has to be the same and fit in the box. And I said, why? Because if I have this really talented person, I don't want to have to replace them in 2 years because they've outgrown me. And so that was one of the things I really focused on was I want you to grow with the organization because the organization is only going to get better because of it.
I think back, I kind of said this a while ago. I don't recall being encouraged to ask the why questions really for, I don't know, probably the first 6 or 7 years of my career. And so when I think about my internship, I learned something from my first group of mentors in the organization I was working for. And that was they saw a lot in me and I saw something different. And I felt like I needed to follow my path, not theirs. And they worked to create a position, a full-time position in the organization. And I said, thank you very much. I'm not interested in that. I'm going to go in a different direction. And I went to work for a park district. It was my first full-time job. And I had a really hard parting with my internship because a bunch of the people who I was working with were really disappointed in me. And I remember not being able to have a thoughtful conversation about that. But that's not what I learned. What I learned was 6 months later when I said, shit, I made a mistake. This isn't what I wanted to do. I thought it was, but it's actually not. And I'm not happy. And I conjured up all of the courage that I had. And I called the manager who I had worked for, who was very upset that I went in a different direction. And I wasn't sure that he was even going to take my phone call. And he answered the phone and he said, don't worry about it. We all take steps that aren't the right ones in our careers. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. It's your job to get a job, but I want you in this profession and I am going to bend over backwards to do it. And I remember at that time being overwhelmed by that and saying, he, he's, I thought I thought he hated me. And in fact, he was just sad, right? That I wasn't following a path that they saw for me and that I needed to discern. I needed to find that path myself. So there's a couple of things that I've learned in my work as a manager. And one is to let people discern, but to give them reasons why I think they should do something, right? Not to force it, not to say you must do this, because I do believe people have to come to their own decisions themselves. Um, but so that's one thing. But the other thing is to encourage the why questions that I was never encouraged to ask, and to push me, ask me why we're doing something, force me to justify it, force me to think about why I think it's happening. And sometimes I'll be right and sometimes I won't be. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to call me out on the carpet in a thoughtful, productive way, obviously, but to do so such that we all kind of grow from the experience. And I can think of several people in my life um, who are significantly younger than me, who I see as some of my most important mentors, because they say to me, "You aren't asking the why question. We're going to ask you the why question, and you're going to have to justify it." And it forces me out of my space of I know everything, I know the answer, I know the into a space of maybe I don't. And so, I've always tried to be comfortable with being confronted, and it's not always easy, but it's important.
All right, so I'm supposed to follow both of them, which is really deeply unfair. So I'm going to say the mentors that I have had that have been the most helpful and inspiring are the ones who uh, we're willing to have a quick 5-minute conversation about what we're trying to do. And then when they say, well, you'll figure it out. And so there was that deep sense of trust that we could just go and figure stuff out. And so a couple of jobs that I've had, um, like we joke, we were inventing things to try to, whether it was community engagement in a racially diverse community, then the community didn't talk to each other. And we were like, well, let's try this. Well, that didn't work. Let's try that. And we kept this iterative, innovative kind of process. And so this willingness to keep trying until we figured it out it was really impactful early on in my career. And I had some fun jobs. Um, I worked in one community. I was there for 7 years. I had 6 jobs in 7 years because it was just like, well, you're gonna go do that. Okay, now you're gonna go do that. And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. Uh, in my own organization, as I think about this, I have been trying to uh, tell people that they can control the stories that they tell. And so my IT director is just great. He's been in the organization for a long time, and I think I've told the stories before, but he like walked down all the way to my office and he got to the door and he says, I already know what you're going to say, but I feel compelled to ask anyways. And he asked the question and I said, well, what do you think I'm going to say? And he says, well, I think you're going to say yes. I said, yeah, you're right. Like, don't come asking anymore. Like you are fully empowered. And so I'm trying to infuse that spirit of just, right, figure it out. We know what we're trying to do. We've got real good alignment around our vision, around our pillars. Like, go have fun. And he has like done like 7 more things that he didn't ask permission for. He tells me about them afterwards. And I literally just smile because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we're after. Make us better, make us faster, make us more coherent, and stop doing things that don't make sense anymore. And he's been crushing it. So, I don't know if I actually answered the question. I may have skirted it, but I appreciate it. Uh, Melissa, what do you got for us?
I have 2 questions, but I kinda have a follow-up, for your comment or your response to Micah's question. Um, so you gave the example of your IT director, but is there, for example, maybe a director that you don't have as much trust and confidence in that you still allow them to do the same thing? Where you're like, "Yeah, take creativity, go ahead." Or is this kind of like a selective process where it's like, "You've shown me that you kind of know what you're doing. I believe in you to kinda take that next step and be more assertive."
That's a really hard question to answer. So the short answer is, uh, I do think you do have to differentiate kind of where people are in their right in their journey and in their levels of like what they're wanting to do. Um, I say that so the short answer is yes. Every organization has people performing at different levels. The only smart thing I've ever done is to realize that the problem is mine. And so if somebody isn't sort of doing what what I think they ought to be doing, the problem is mine. And so it's my responsibility then to ask questions about, well, I wonder why that is. And so then I'm forced to say, well, hey, we had this thing. Why do you think it went this way? And then they give an answer and you're like, okay, so then you're constantly assessing, like, what am I doing that's not helping them push or drive or right innovate differently? And I think maybe that I've only been a manager for a few years. Like I came at this late in life, and I think that's actually served me better because I know that whenever there is something that doesn't work in the organization, it's my fault. And that I say that like I'm not great at this job, but I do care about being good at it. So I hope that
No,
answered your
that
question.
Yeah, that was perfect. I was very curious on how you respond to different levels because you are right. I think everyone is kind of on a separate journey and leadership styles and leadership individuals, it varies.
I had a boss, a- and every week she listed out everybody that reported to her, and you either got a plus or a minus for the week. Mentally, just her judgment. Just, was it a good week or a bad week? Yes or no? And if it was 3 bad weeks in a row, she had to say, write down what's bothering me. And then she said, do I care enough to invest time to fix it? And sometimes the answer was no. So you do have to say, like, what's my willingness to get in the mix? So if you were getting all pluses, you was just sort of like, she'd say, thanks, keep it up, you're doing a great job. But like, if you're wanting to take a correction, like, am I really willing to invest the time it's going to take to fix this? And sometimes the choice is like, you know what, I can live with mediocre for a while. Or you know what, this is going so bad sideways, like, I really want to get invested right now. And so that was her little like device that she used to kind of decide where, because we all have the same amount of hours every day, like same levels of energy. Like, if I'm not willing to make the change, like, then just admit that you're not and just move on. And so that was a tremendously helpful little shortcut that she gave me. So God bless Judy Reaganshide. She was an amazing boss.
So I'm going to tap onto what Mike said. I had a great friend and mentor, still a great friend, who gave me some very solid advice early in my city management career. You can only spin so many plates at a time, because if you pick up too many, they will all fall and break. And I learned that the hard way a little bit in the beginning, because I'm like, I'm going to conquer the world. We're going to do all these things. And yeah, eventually some plates break. And then you have to clean that mess up too. And so that would be the advice as part of the story I would part with you, is you can only spin so many plates at the same time.
That is
Um, yeah,
awesome.
that's really great advice, because I feel like I'm also very ambitious, and similarly, I also want to just do everything and conquer the world. And I'm convinced I am the change. And I think I actually said that today. I was on an interview panel and I was like, tell me your problems, I can fix them. And they started telling them to me, and I was like, actually, I have no experience in this. I don't know anything. I appreciate it, but I can't fix it. Sorry. Um, and I think I need to learn. And I've been given this advice in the past, and it's still something that I'm working on, is learning to say no and just being okay saying no. Um, so I will thank you, Corey. I really appreciate that. And it cost me to reflect on a lot in my life. So my questions for you. In previous episodes, you have talked about the different generations, how things have changed, and how specifically things in the profession. What would you say are some things, or something that have stayed the same throughout the years? And what advice would you give to someone who is trying to make their way in this profession? And there is another question after this.
What hasn't changed is what you guys are exhibiting this evening and what we've talked about, which is this commitment to be a helper and to make other people's lives better. Perhaps people that you'll never meet, people that you'll never have the opportunity to get to know, but you are working in their best interests. And that is a through line in everything that I've seen.
So I think what hasn't changed and will only get exacerbated is the needs will always outweigh the resources. And prioritization, who's had access to influence, that is what's changing. And I think for the better. And your generation will only make that better, because, and I think we talked about it in one of the earlier episodes, councils used to be the banker, the university president. They all looked the same. They went to the same third places. And that was how government was ran. And it's not anymore. And do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. But I think the fact that how we prioritize what matters for the community is a far more inclusive conversation than it ever has been before.
How did I go third both times? Like, this is just so hard. I will say, I think one thing that is constant throughout the generations is there is an information imbalance between staff and elected officials, because we are working on these things full time with teams of staff, and we're spending hundreds, if not 1,000 hours thinking about a problem. And when we present it to the city council, they are thinking about it for 40 minutes a year. And so there's just going to be a gap in understanding. And, so right, I've been talking about a project for 3 years. We present it to the council in a 25-minute PowerPoint presentation and then ask if they have any questions and then try to move on. Like, there's always that tension about where information starts and ends. And what is then like the reality is like, so it's our responsibility to be really clear about what we've done, the research, the framing of the issue, so they can make an informed choice. And I think that is really hard. And I will also say it's really sacred. I think we are stewards of democracy. They are the ones who are making this choice. We better be damn good at helping them make the best choice. So that's what I would say I think is consistent across generations.
Do you want to answer my second part on what advice would you give to someone who's trying to make their way in the profession?
My advice is actually I don't have any advice. I mean, we know, like, you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing. Like, you come with the right spirit, you come with the right attitude. Like, I want to charge headlong into changing the world too. And I'm actually like, that's what gets me up in the morning. Like, we're cut from the same cloth. Like, this is why this is a natural fit. This is why, like, the universe conspires to bring people like us together to change the world. I absolutely believe that. And I just, like, stay at it and don't, like, there are days that will be less fun than others, but there are more fun days than there are not. So yeah, I wish I have zero advice. That's the short answer.
So I'll take a little bit different approach. You are going to make mistakes, many of them. Own it, learn from it. And so the advice is to stay curious, because you will get things wrong, and the opportunity is to learn from it and fix it. And to not be ashamed of that, because, and I think we've talked about this, you learn more from what you get wrong than what you get right. And so having that growth mindset through and through, and not getting stuck in the shame, especially when you're an overachiever, there is nothing worse than, why didn't I catch that? Or I should have. Like, you will be your own worst critic, but turn that off. Find a way to flip it on its side and be like, what did I learn from it? Instead of beating yourself up, take that moment to be curious and be like, what did I learn from it? What will I do better next time because I made this mistake? And the quicker in your career you can make that switch, the more vibrant and robust your learning path will be.
So I have a couple of thoughts that I want to throw out for you guys and for others who may be listening. The first is to just underscore what Corey and Mike just said, and to perhaps add a bit to it. So we are walking down a complicated, uncharted path, and we have a relatively brief time ahead of us to continue down that path. You have a much longer one, and you are existing in realities that we didn't have to think about. So you have to ground yourself in something. You have to ground yourself in the practical, the central pillar of what it is that we're doing. And that is, no matter what, politics and partisanship aside, no matter what, your most important task is to serve with integrity and to serve in a way that you can look yourself in the mirror tomorrow and say, I did the right thing. It will require courage. It will require you to steel yourself up against things that perhaps you don't want to do. When I was told my first day in grad school by local government legend Irene Rubin was, that I must always have my resignation letter in the top drawer of my desk, because I will be asked to do something that conflicts with my ethical requirements as a local government professional, and that I must act in that way if I don't believe that I can act with integrity and with ethics in mind. And I think we have an opportunity, maybe it's a complicated one, but it's an opportunity to reground ourselves in what matters the most in this day and in this time and in this age and in this era of change. That is to find your center and to stay true to it, because you have to wake up again, as I said, in the morning and look yourself in the eye in the mirror. It's the most important thing that we can do. And it is incredibly hard. I am not going to sugarcoat it. But what I'm hearing from the both of you tonight, and what I've heard from so many people who are in your cohort, not just the fellows, but others who are coming up in this profession, is that you see that too. It's not something that people with years under their belt see, and you don't. You see it better than us. And so you've got now an opportunity to show the people who are coming up behind you what it means to be in this place, in this role, in these jobs, and how to do the hard thing. And so that's my advice, is to be true to yourself and be true to these ethical standards that we have committed ourselves to, and need to recommit and recommit and recommit as the days go by.
Hear,
Thank
hear.
you, Phil. I have one last question, and then we can move on. And I'm so glad you actually kind of your advice ties in with my next question. Um, so are you taking chances on recent graduates? And what I mean by taking chances is, are you hiring them? Are you interviewing them? Are you getting to know them? Are you giving them an opportunity to work in your organization? Are there even positions available? The first question was the only question, but I just had like more little tangents you can go on.
Oh, I'm going to go first because the short answer is 1000%. So, I work in an organization. So we're small for our region. So we're like 45,000 population. We had never had an intern program in the manager's office. And so I showed up and I sort of said, well, we need to build one of those. And so, Colin Vu was our very first. He's an amazing grad from the University of Minnesota. And he is coming up on wrapping up on his year. And one of his tasks was, all right, you have to go find someone to take your place. And so we are now building a little empire of local interns. And so we are committed to this. I have actually never had an opportunity to hire an ICMA fellow. It's something that I feel a little bit of shame on, but um, you know, I'm out to build the workforce of tomorrow. And so we are giving people as many opportunities as we can. We just hired a bunch of firefighters who were all born in the 2000s. It made me feel like 100 years old as when we were doing orientation. Um, but I learned this lesson, and from a great friend of mine who actually says, do you know how you hire a workforce for tomorrow? You just have to hire them. Like, that's the answer. You can interview whoever you want. You can job post wherever you want. But if you actually want to make a difference, you just have to do the thing. And so that's my commitment to the organization and the community is we're just going to do the stuff. So that's a great question. And I got to go first.
So the simple answer is I always try, and I'm in a very small organization. So we're less than we're about 115 full-time employees, and so we don't have a lot of opportunities, but we do have summertime interns. We do try to create those opportunities for them. What I try to do is when people reach out to me, and I just had a conversation with a recent college grad last week. I've got another one next week with somebody else who's reached out. My goal is to try to work to find them something. So if I can't do it, if I don't have the space in my organization or the opportunity in my organization, I work to put them in contact with people that I do know may. And I can't get them the job, but I can place them in a position to be able to ask and to work through that. And that's very fulfilling for me. I will say, we just sat down and are starting to talk about the opportunity to create a fellowship in our organization. My predecessors several ago, Bob Morris, is a bit of a local legend in Illinois and in the Midwest. But Bob had a program. He was the manager for 33 years, and Glencoe has never been a big community. He was the manager for 33 years, and he had 46 people who worked for the community, who for some period of time, either 2 to 4 years, um, in internship slash administrative assistants, as he called them, and he sent them out into the world, and they exist at every scale of government, to the point at which people will come up to me and say, "It's so nice to meet the manager in Glencoe. That's where I got my start." And I now manage a community of 150,000, and it's still my favorite. My favorite memory was getting my bearings in Glencoe. And so I feel a responsibility to continue to try to create those opportunities for folks as they exist. And so that's very much front of mind for me. And I think any manager who's worth their stripes is thinking about how they can support the next generation, whether it's in their own organization or advocating for them elsewhere.
All right. So we are coming up on the end of our podcast, but so we have a tradition where we kind of hand it off to our guests to bring us to a close. So it is an open floor for you to share any kind of reflection or anything that you're thinking about the last little bit that you have spent with us. I will let you guys find out about who's going to go first and who's going to go second, but you get the final word.
Where do I begin? Thank you so much for having us. I mean, it's clear that you are thinking of the future and you're considering us because you reached out to us and you asked us to be a part of your podcast and everything. And I appreciate you guys like caring about what we have to say and our insights and how we're viewing things because I feel like a lot of the times as we interact with older generations, and I will say it depends on the generation you're talking to. And I really like Gen Xers. One of the questions I was really hoping you would ask was and you asked a variation of it, but it was you asked like, what is something that we do that you think is stupid? The question originally was like something that this generation does that you don't agree with, or it was something around those lines. And I wrote an answer. I wrote a paragraph. I was ready. Um, but to make a long tangent short, the term woke, we're often referred to as like the woke generation and everything, and it's viewed as a bad thing, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I think it's just our perspective, and I don't think we have to be wanting the same things that previous generations wanted or anything. And I don't think just because we view it differently, it means we're viewing it wrong. Um, so if I could wish one thing for past generations to stop doing, it would be to call us woke, because we're not, and I don't agree with it. Now to actually close, um, I had an epiphany today as I was listening to your podcast. I did only get like 10 minutes in, but I have like conversations with you when I'm listening to the podcast, and I have my own thoughts that come. And one of the things that stuck with me or that I thought was, as I was kind of reflecting and preparing for the podcast and for our recording, was don't measure us, and by us I mean Gen Z, don't measure us by our experience. Measure us by our potential to grow. As of right now, you all are the ones that are doing the hiring and everything. And like personally, from firsthand experience, I can say the job market, in my experience, has been really hard. Getting into local government was not as easy and as simple as I thought it was going to be. And oftentimes, what I hear is you have so much potential, but you don't have any experience to back it up. And that's just so hurtful to me because I can grow, I can learn. And one thing that I love about my county here and talking to the HR assistant director is she always tells me, she's like, we can teach skills, we can't teach character. And that's what we go off of. And I wholeheartedly believe that, and I hope other managers that are listening or other people in a leadership experience or a leadership position that are able to choose their employees look at it that way because unfortunately we're coming into the work field, many of us straight out of college, and there's this new trend where you actually want to graduate. Younger generations are trying to graduate college faster. I did my master's in a 5-year plan. So I had no experience, like full-time work experience coming into this. And I really needed someone to take a chance on me. And I'm really glad that someone did give me that opportunity. And I hope I can just prove myself and continue to grow in my career.
How am I gonna top what you just said? But that
You
was
will, I
like
know
an
you will.
amazing take. Well, Phil, Hurry, Michael, I just want to say thank you for creating this space. You guys are amazing. I feel like just seeing what you guys like, especially Phil, like your LinkedIn. I don't know how you do it, but it's just something whereby anytime I see your post, it's just like inspirational. And you guys are doing amazing things, and who best to follow if not you guys? Because as much as we're the new generation, you're the one who's going to guide us to where we want to be. So thank you for creating this space for this conversation. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to reflect, learn, and be a part of a dialogue that's shaping the next generation of leaders and the future of local government. And just like what Melissa said, for me, I would always pick, I'll advocate for internationals, right? I know it's a dicey situation currently in the U.S., but I'm glad someone took a chance on me 2 years ago when I came into the U.S. The village of Roselle in Illinois. They had never hired an international intern before, and I was the first one that started this internship from year one. Right? Internationals always do their internships in year two. But for someone to take that chance on me, I would like more municipalities, and if they're listening to this, take a chance on international students, give them the chance to prove themselves. And even for the fellowship, like this year, I'm the only international fellow that got this opportunity. But I want us to get to a point whereby more people from other countries can have this opportunity to be in this profession that we all love, and bring in different perspectives from different countries, and just building and making sure that the next generation stands strong. But you guys are doing an amazing job. You're amazing. Thank you for giving us this opportunity for our voices to be heard. And not many people will do this, or not many people will take a chance on us. But thank you for doing this. We're appreciative of this. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to pull a little rank and throw one last thought out there. And I think it's relevant to both of you, and it's relevant to your cohort and those in your age bracket who are looking at this. I was told once by a former ICMA president that the greatest gift to democracy that the United States has given is the council manager form of government. And I think that is as true today as ever. And I think it is particularly important. And Micah, wherever you land, and Melissa, wherever you land, you two are carrying that tradition with you. you will carry, you will be carriers of democracy to wherever you land. And the work that you're doing and the work you will continue to do, and we will keep you in this profession, whether you want to be or not, because you need to be here. I'll just say it that way. You are going to change the world. And that is what we know, we see in your generation, and those coming up behind us, that there is, there is a future. It is bright. It may not be simple, it may not be clear, but it's there, and it's going to be because of all of you. And I just am grateful for the work that you're doing and the time you're putting into it and the care that you're applying, to your communities. And I can't wait to see the amazing successes that you will achieve. So thank you for spending time with us. Thank you to everyone who's thoughtfully been listening along, for these 24 episodes, and we look forward to the opportunity to continue, these conversations, on Authenticity FM. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.